So the other day I was doing research and decided to look at the African continent. I was like, let me see what my people are up to, and I decided to compare the African continent with other continents in the world. And I must say I was quite disappointed because the level of underdevelopment and poverty that is hitting Africa as a continent is just too much. Because how is it that the richest continent, one of the richest continents in the world, is going through so much? Like, what is the reason that Africa is not where it needs to be, And that's why we're here today. Hi, my name is Janita Maya. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's talk about the miseducation of Africans, and I want you guys to watch this clip. It is from a YouTube channel called Kenganda, and you guys should go and check them out because they touch on so many topics about the African diaspora and so much more. Watch this.
What do you mean by you're saying that Africa is being miseducated?
If you look at the ancient Africans, not actually ancient, the pre-colonial Africans, their education system was hands-on from day one. So everything was practical and you would learn on the job. If you look at the best education systems in the world, all of them, number one, I think, was Japan, there was Germany, there was Belgium, there was China, there was Russia. All of them teach in their mother tongues. The West are all in Africa. All of them. I think there was Mozambique. They were all of them teaching slave languages. Now let's look at the education today. When we go to school, we sit in the class from morning till evening.
Okay.
So you find that you wake up in the morning from Monday to Friday, sitting in a room for 22 years, and you're not doing anything practical. First of all, the language, you don't know the language that you learn in. So after 1 year, they will just put on our papers and say, we are dumb. And they'll put failure. And the kid is a failure because he doesn't know the language.
Now, research and studies actually indicate that the mother tongue, which is the thinking tongue, or the thinking language, is the best instructional language and enabler that facilitates better learning. I'm sure that if you watch this, if someone explains something to you in your mother tongue or your native language, you would understand it better than a language that was imposed or forced onto you. You understand? It's like if I come to you and you are a Luganda speaking person and I explain something to you in English, but English wasn't your first tongue, there's going to be some sort of difficulty for you to understand what it is that someone else is trying to say. Now, despite all these indicators, despite what the facts were showing about using the mother tongue or the thinking tongue to teach people, the colonizers actually discouraged these enablers and facilitated the self-destroying behavior. So they actually introduced a language that would benefit them because, if they speak English, what benefit would it do for them if they said, okay, you know what, let the education system start teaching people in their native language? They would be powerless because imagine if people spoke their native language that the colonizers didn't understand and decided to do something against them, then how are they going to get them, or how are they going to convince the natives to give up their lives for them? It made no sense. So they decided to actually force and impose English, well, not just English because there's so many colonizers in the world, but English, French, German, and so much more onto these natives. And this wasn't even their first language. And if you are a local person, you know how sometimes it can be hard for you to learn a whole different language, to learn the language. You can learn a language and you can read it, but actually speaking the language is a bit difficult. And I want, if the Ugandans watching this, do you remember the times you were in school and then you were getting beat because you couldn't speak English really well? Or if you had like a local accent, then you would get laughed at, time and time again because people thought, or if you had an accent, people laughed at you because you were not up to that standard of being intelligent. But I kind of want you guys to hone in on the fact that the colonizers came in and decided to impose a different language onto people that already had the native language. Yet if they had come in to help, they would have enabled the native language or the thinking language onto its people. Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about how the African education system was also designed to continue systematic slavery.
There's a German kid right now, as you and I speaking, subject mining. But when you look at his continent, wherever he comes from, there's no minerals underground. But the boys and girls are being taught about mining and minerals. Me and you, there was no subject called mining in high school. What mining were you taught in high school? What's the process to start a mine? Just tell me basics of mining. But mining is a strong pillar, probably amongst the strongest pillars of our economy. So that means that there's a child in Germany somewhere that's being prepared, in Asia somewhere that's being prepared to come and run this economy, while your kids are being prepared to come and work for those German kids that are going to come here in future. Because your kids are being taught how to do nonsense, how to label an insect. Listen, our economy in this country, it's agriculture. Our economy in this country, I can even break down what agriculture is. Mining, manufacturing. Why aren't those things primary subjects in primary school, in high school, so that you've got a basic understanding of your own economy? That means some people must come from somewhere to run this economy, because your kids were never taught anything about this economy. So designed to continue systematic slavery and suppress the people of the day and make sure that the future belongs to those who are prepared for it.
You've seen the clip. When I first saw this clip, I was just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Because think of how many African countries actually have so many mines. Think of how many African countries have minerals or have so many resources that they end up selling to other people. But show me an African child that is studying mining. I will wait in the comment section. Show me an African child that is studying mining. And this just enforces the rule. When the colonizers were here, when they decided to educate Africans, because that's what they did, because there was no education for a really long time, and then they just introduced Western education to African countries. They decided to make laborers of African people, They were not teaching you so that you can go out there and compete for the same thing that they're competing for. No, they were giving you breadcrumbs so that you can just continue to stay at the level where you're at and learn nothing, I mean, he mentioned something about learning about the parts of an insect. Now that I think about it, what were you going to do with the parts of an insect? Or what have you done with the knowledge that you have about the parts of an insect? I mean, I'm asking myself, but I'm also asking you right now watching me. What have you done with that information? Now, name one part of an insect. What have you done with it? How has that helped your life? How has that advanced your life? Or how has that helped you help your community? Crickets? Yeah, I thought so. Because why would they taught us what they wanted us to know, and they wanted to keep us at a certain level. They wanted to keep us grounded so that, God forbid, you have the common sense to advance in your field and try to overthrow them or try to compete for the same things that they're competing for. And when you also think about it, the colonizers did not just colonize. They decided to also colonize the interpretation of history itself. They did rewrite history to favor themselves, because you can't tell me a white person came into Uganda and decided to name Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria didn't have a name before Lake Victoria. So what did the people call Lake Victoria before it was called Lake Victoria? Food for thought. Now let's move on to the brain drain.
Unfortunate thing is, our school systems don't teach nationalism. They prepare us to leave. They teach us Western history. They teach us Western culture. They glorify Western culture to a point where you would get beatings in school for speaking your local language in class. Think about how insidious that is for a teacher who is of African origin to give you a spanking in school because you are not using the Queen's language in class.
Now, Google actually defines brain drain. It's a slang, it indicates a substantial immigration or migration of individuals. But for this particular episode, we are talking about the brain drain. What is happening with professionals, African professionals who decide they want to leave their African countries to go abroad and, earn in a different currency, or go abroad and start a life abroad. Like, imagine sitting there and you think, you know what? I should leave my hometown and go abroad and see what I can do for myself. I'm not trying to beat you down about that. You do you. But think about that. There came a time in Africa where going abroad was so strong in that people chose schools and subjects that would actually favor them to go abroad. Can you imagine that? Basing your whole life on the fact that, you know what? After high school, I'm taking this course so that this course can enable me to leave this country. Like, just think about that fact. Think about how colonizers or how the other people glorified going to their areas, glorified working for them, because a Ugandan will think, you know what, I don't mind being a cleaner for white people. I would rather clean for white people than stay in my country, hustle, and contribute to the community. No, people just feel like if they leave their hometowns, then they've made it in life, or then they'll make it in life. Which does happen sometimes. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. So you have to think about the negative consequences of brain drain. It looks so glamorous for some Africans to go abroad and leave their community bare, but you have to think about it. All these African professionals going abroad to do these jobs, who is doing the actual jobs in the country? So if all the doctors, all the nurses, all the engineers decided to go abroad because, they thought they could have a better life over there, then who stays in the community? You just leave an underdeveloped community. You leave a country that doesn't have people meant to take it forward. And that's why we're still behind on so many things, because the people meant to get educated the right way to help us are leaving. Now let's talk about how the Western education system has created rememberers and not thinkers.
School system which did not promote thinking but promoted remembering for the sake of creating good employees who don't think but can remember. Okay?
Right.
So they brought a school system where you learnt useless things. Homo habilis. Who was Shaka's mother? What is the longest river in Africa?
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the use of that rubbish? Okay? So you went into school and you were studying how many times Muslims pray per day.
Yep.
You wake up at night to study how many times Muslims pray per day. So you memorize photosynthesis. You memorize how many teeth a dog has. You memorize everything. And at the end of the day, what did they produce? They produced someone who was a container of useless knowledge. A container of useless knowledge.
Right.
That is why today we have doctors. We have been independent for 55 years. Have you heard that there are vaccines being made by Zambian doctors? So you walk out of medical school as someone who knows when to give Panadol, how to take temperature. You are a doctor who is a Panadol distributor. And it's not your fault, the education system. Okay? You have professors in this country, in the School of Forestry at Copperbelt University.
Yep.
We have lived with Mukula tree since God created the world. All they know is how to label the parts of the tree. They don't know the value of the tree.
Yeah.
Now you've had the gentleman right there. He said when you create a community of rememberers and not thinkers, you're just creating empty tins. He put it so nicely. He just said you're creating empty tins. Because what good is remembering if you can't think? And he actually brought up something that was really intriguing, because there's so many African innovators and creators. I'm not debunking that. They're really there. There are so many of them. But why is it that every time something is introduced, he talked about vaccines, you don't see Africans doing certain things. Well, the Africa I'm from, you don't see people doing certain things like that. The education system has created a bunch of people. All they do is cram. There's like a bunch of cram work. You go to a class, you cram what you can cram, and then you make sure what you've crammed, you're putting it on paper. But there's no critical thinking happening. And the funny thing, I remember in university, we're doing a critical thinking course. But there was no critical thinking involved, because we still had to cram and remember and then put it on paper for us to pass the course. I mean, what's the whole point of educating people if they can't think for themselves? And when you think about this whole system of remembrance and whatnot, this just creates a workforce that continues to allow the exploitation of African resources. Because if a rememberer is just seated there and he sees someone coming for his resources, you think he's going to think like, oh, let me protect what's here, or let me do something with the minerals that I see here? No, he's just going to remember that, oh, the mineral does ABC, but that's it. He or she doesn't know what to do with the mineral, You have to remember that the system was designed to train Africans as laborers so that the colonizers had a regular supply of workers so that they can develop their country. Do you see that? That they made sure they had enough laborers to move up in the world, to develop their countries, while they left their African homes underdeveloped with nothing. And you have to keep in mind, I feel like all colonial masters had one goal. That was to preserve the status quo, train a limited number of mid-level bureaucrats, limit the growth of nationalism, and impose its culture and language. There was nothing about, oh, let us help Africa to do ABC. No, it was more of, what can we do for Africa so that Africa can give us something in return? Just think about it, Now, you've had everything that I had to say, and I don't want to be that person who just brings to you guys problems. I want to bring you guys the solutions too. This is the solution that I think most African countries need to take up, and that is education reforms. Now, shout out to the countries that are actually changing names of streets from the colonizer's name to an African name. We applaud you. But can we also change the education system? Can we create a system that has more thinkers, a system that is more practical, a system that will, put us forward? Guys, I'm so tired of hearing that Africa is underdeveloped story. Let's do something. Let's actually act on it. Let's teach people the necessary skills they need, technical skills that they need, so that we can all move forward. Let us advance forward. We need to change the course of everything that we've been doing. We need to change how we're teaching our kids. We need to change even adults. Guys, there's adult school. We can let go of what we've been taught and relearn new skills. It's never too late to learn something in this life, And as Africa, we must protect our Africanness, or you can call it, we must protect our Africanacity. We must preserve our culture. We must protect what we have jealously, because the people who are taking all these things that we have to offer, they don't really care where we are. And we are just waiting here. I want you to watch this clip.
All the videos. We need to go practical in how we can compete. We need to go to the current situation. Teachers who are teaching marketing, they have to teach social media. How you can market things using Instagram, Facebook, not the old billboard, whatever. World has changed. We have to change everything. Professors have to write books which solve the practical problems, not writing the books just because to get promotion. Like I said, we have seen how M-Pesa, how Tigo Pesa, how the mobile payment systems in Africa is generating billions of money. It's changing the business. The way we do transaction, it is mobile payment system in Africa is way sophisticated, more than this Apple Pay or other this whatever Visa card, MasterCard. But how many books do we see? I have never seen any book professor is writing a book about that. Those are the things we have to teach people at school. Those who did the marketing, who did the accounting, go and teach those one.
You've had the man right there gives really, really strong points. And I emphasize the point. We need to go more practical. We need more thinkers and not rememberers and not theory people. We need to do so much more. There's so much more to be done. We can just sit, fold our hands, and then just wait for whatever to happen to us. We need to be action-oriented, proactive, and everything, because the rate at which we're going, it won't get us anywhere. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. I would love to hear that. But also that, a few of you are not subscribed, so please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And thank you so much for all the views. I do not take it for granted that you are watching me. Follow me on all my social media platforms at Janita Maya. I will see you guys next time.